Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we're going to be looking at what I believe is the best wrestling game on the Super Nintendo. It's Saturday Night Slam Masters. Believe it or not, there's actually a story with this one, which feels a little weird since I've gone through so many of these with no story or anything like that. So it feels a little odd, but it's really cool that there is one. The story is in the manual, and it explains that this wrestling league was set up by Capcom because Capcom thought that the wrestling world was stagnant, and they issued this challenge to see who was the strongest wrestler. It's a story that's really similar to a lot of fighting games from the 90s, and that makes a lot of sense because Capcom made this game. 8 wrestlers respond to this challenge, despite the fact that there are 10 wrestlers on the roster, but we'll get into that more later. And they compete for the Capcom Wrestling Association Championship. It's pretty awesome, and it basically sends you on this globe-trotting adventure to beat up a whole bunch of other wrestlers, and feels very much like Street Fighter 2 in some ways. But it's kind of a hybrid between Street Fighter 2 and Final Fight. So yeah, let's get more into the game, and I'll stop rambling about this. I really like the gameplay in Saturday Night Slam Masters. It's really simple, and each character feels a little bit unique, and it makes the game a lot more fun to play. This is a great example of a very good arcade wrestling game, as opposed to the other arcade wrestling games that I've played that have been either lacking in content or have just been kind of terrible. This is a game that only needs 3 buttons, so your Y button is attack, B button is jump, and your A button is going to be your pin. It's really cool that they kept it that simple, but at the same time, it would have been nice if they added in like a special button or something. That would have probably changed the way that the game is played, but it would have been nice if that was added in there. The control scheme does remind me an awful lot of a beat-em-up game, where you would have a similar thing where it's just attack, jump, and then special, but in this case, attack, jump, and pin. It works really well, so it makes the controls very simple, and it makes it easier to get all the moves out. Each character actually has their own finishing move and their own signature move as well, so that helps the characters feel different from each other, not just the fact that they look different, but they actually play a little bit different as well. Also, this game can be played with 4 people, which is really awesome, assuming that you had the multi-tap and you had 3 friends that wanted to play this. I'm assuming most people could find 3 people that would want to play this as well, so hey, it would be pretty awesome as a multiplayer game or a party game back in the day. The only downside on this game is that there are only 2 game modes. So you have a single player, which is a gauntlet match. You go around and you play every character in the roster. And then the other one is a tag team battle royal match. So it's basically you and your tag team partner in the ring at the same time against the opponents who are in the ring at the same time. And your objective is to pin or submit both of your opponents. It's pretty awesome, but yeah, it would have been nice if there had been 1 or 2 more modes added onto this, like, I don't know, like a 6-man tag or a Royal Rumble or something that would have added some more variety to the gameplay. Let's talk a little bit about the roster here. First of all, you have Mayor Mike Hagar, who is the worst mayor in video games, at least the worst mayor in video games in my opinion. He's from the Final Fight games, and it's really cool that he's here because he was billed as a professional wrestler. Gosh, that was hard. And it's awesome that he's in a wrestling game. Then you have El Stingray, the Great Oni, Gunlock, Biff Slamovich, King Rasta, Alexander the Greater, and Titan Tim. They are all just over-the-top wrestlers. It's pretty great that they're in here, and they're the only 8 that you can play in the single-player mode. When you go to the tag team matches, Jumbo Jack and the Scorpion are added in. It kind of sucks that they don't get to be in the single-player mode, but yeah, it's fun that they're in the tag team mode. When you went into the arcades, if you played the upgraded version or the updated version of Saturday Night Slam Masters, then you could play as Jumbo Jack and the Scorpion in the single-player mode. So, yeah, it would have been nice if we had gotten that version ported to the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, but I guess that just wasn't an option. Overall, this is a very fast-paced wrestling game, and it's really awesome as well. The gameplay is great, the controls are really easy to learn, the moves are easy to pull off, and each wrestler plays just a little bit different, so you don't feel like you're playing the same thing over and over again. Saturday Night Slam Masters is really awesome, and it's better than a lot of the other wrestling games on the Super Nintendo. At the time of this recording, I do have one more game that I need to play, but I'm pretty sure that Saturday Night Slam Masters is the best one. This is the best looking wrestling game that I have seen so far, whether it was the NES games or the other Super Nintendo games. The sprites are huge and very detailed. The entrances for the wrestlers are excellent. The action in the ring is awesome. Everything about this game looks great. The wrestlers have their little entrance animations, so you get like a laser light show and some smoke, and then your character is walking to the ring with their either costume or their gimmicks or whatever. Some of them have jackets on, some have a top hat and cane, others have something more elaborate, like Vader's mask, if you remember that from WCW, and I don't think he wore it in the WWF. I'm pretty sure he wore it in Japan, though. It's similar to a lot of the other, like, more elaborate get-ups that you would see some of the wrestlers wear in the 80s and 90s. It's pretty cool to see it here. Each wrestler has a somewhat unique look. In some ways, they remind me of characters from other, like, fighting games, and also some of the wrestlers that I would see in the WWF. Overall, this is a beautiful game. The sprite work is awesome. I love the pixel art. It looks like it could fit into like some of the Street Fighter games or even the Final Fight games. It just looks really awesome. Each wrestler looks great, and I think the developers maybe drew some inspiration from wrestlers from all over the world. Since you have luchadors in here, you've got some of just the monsters that you would see in some of the other wrestling promotions. It's just a great looking game, and yeah, I love this game an awful lot. I do want to touch on the manual a little bit. I think it's kind of fun because it gives that story from the very beginning that I mentioned, and it also gives you a lot of information on the different wrestlers that you're going to be playing as or beating up. And it tells you what their finishing moves are and how to do them. I really like it when games do this so that you don't have to go and open up a menu to try to figure things out, or you don't have to try to just mash buttons to figure things out, or you don't have to rely on your jerk friend who knows all of the moves and just refuses to tell you how to do them. That's always really annoying. The manual doesn't tell you a whole lot else, aside from this is how you do each of the moves, this is how each character's finisher is, these are some other moves that the characters can do, because they kept it really simple. You have kind of your signature move where you mash the attack button, kind of like Honda's 100-hand slap or something like that. Each character can do a similar move to that, and then they have their finishing move, which is some button combination. And many of those are similar to how you would do some moves in Street Fighter. So it's great that Capcom kept some of those things the same, but also put that in the manual so you didn't have to try to just guess and figure out who could do what. I really like it when games do that. So yeah, I think this manual is pretty awesome. Saturday Night Slam Masters has kind of moved ahead of HammerLock Wrestling as my favorite wrestling game on the Super Nintendo. So yeah, I've kind of been digging the unlicensed games a little bit more, or the games that don't have the WWF or WCW license. That's probably a better way of saying it. I think this game is great. It's a pick up and play game with good gameplay, great graphics. The only downside is that there are only 2 game modes, which isn't a huge problem, but it does limit what you can do with the game. This is a game that I didn't know about until I really got on the internet. I was actually introduced to this game through an Angry Video Game Nerd episode. It was only in that one, like, very briefly, but it kind of got me interested in it, and I wanted to see what was really going on with the game. Playing this has been just a ton of fun. I love playing a good game that I didn't know too much about. It's always much more fun than, not knowing about something, bringing it home, and finding out that it's terrible. As far as I know, there's only one more wrestling game on the Super Nintendo, and I am looking forward to that one, but right now, Saturday Night Slam Masters is my favorite. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments section below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.